let's bring them on, ladies and gentlemen. All right, my push rod people, this one's for you. So, you want more power out of your 95 Mustang. Where do you go? LMR, American Muscle, Jig, Summit? Nah, bruh, you head here to the Junkyard, and we're going to show you how to get 300 rear wheel horsepower using parts from a Ford Explorer. Now, honestly, you're not going to get 300 rear wheel horsepower just from a intake manifold and a head swap. There are a couple little things that you're going to have to do, but we're going to break that down. And now, honestly, I believe I can get you 300 rear wheel horsepower for under or right around 12, I would say $1,000 if you are slick with Marketplace or any other second-hand retailer. So let's get into it. First thing we have is the Gt40 Manifold. Now, this might be important to you, some people might not. The first thing that anybody that comes to the Junkyard who are familiar with the Gt40 manifolds is they grab the intake plenum. This is something very easy to snatch off and something people sell online for, you know, $30 to $40 or something like that. Now, over the years, I've taken at least 12 of these things off, and let me give you a little overview. You know, it's really not hard getting the intake manifold off. You know, you have the coils in the way, you have this wire harness plug you got to get out the way because you got two bolts back here. What else? You know, you really don't have to take all this off. It's just getting the cruise control and the throttle cable off, and you know, for the most part, it's not hard to do. It's just, what's the word? It's a little annoying to get to some of these things. That's the best word I say. It's annoying. You gotta have a special a star to get even get the plenum off. So if you come up here, you don't have these little stars or Torx heads, I believe they are. You want to be able to get that off. You need to get that off to get these two inside bolts on the intake manifold. You know, and really, once you get all this stuff out of the way and get the intake manifold off, it's you know, the fuel line, fuel injectors, getting all that stuff off, and then pulling the manifold off is not hard. Now, the thing that's going to be the most time consuming out here in the Junkyard is the heads. Now, to get the heads off, all of this has to come off, and this has a it doesn't have an electric fan. I forgot the name of a clutch fan. It has a clutch fan instead. So you need to go to AutoZone or wherever and run a tool to get the fan off. This whole front assembly is going to take a lot of time, but not as much time as getting the rusted header bolts off. So I would say if you're going to plan, if you find one and you plan on doing it, come out a day ahead and spray some PB Blast on everything, man. That's going to save you time in the long run, because I can tell you from experience, these header bolts are a pain to get off because of rust. And you know, you figure this is a 20-something-year-old car, and it's not like people are taking these headers off to throw on long tubes or something like that. So these headers have been on since, you know, the factory put them on 9 times out of 10. So another key thing is the intake manifold bolts in the front. These are going to break. Let me tell you, the one on the left is 100% going to break all the time. I take that back. There's only one time where I pulled a pair of GT40 heads that did not break. And honestly, I used to bring a little torch up in here. You know, I used to sneak a little torch in here and heat these bolts up as much as I can before I even try to take them off, just to try to break that rust off. Because what happens is, you know, the gasket in between the intake manifold and the heads, it gets some kind of seepage, and that water jacket is right there, and you'll get a little coolant and stuff that'll seep down in the bolt. Next thing you know, 10-15 years later, it's like frozen on there, and when you come to take it off, it just breaks. It just snaps it right off. So don't get discouraged if that happens. You can take it to a machine shop. There's a lot of tutorials online for you to figure out how to get that stud out of that head, but this is part of the process. So don't get discouraged. Not really a horsepower increase, but another thing that you can grab, this has a 8.8 rear end in it, and the nice thing about it is this is a truck, and so these things are going to be geared to pull, so that means you can find a 373 or a 410 gear in here. Now they have these tags on it which normally have the gear ratio, but they're rusted, so you can't find out that way. Another way is to check the door tag. And here is the axle code that I'm telling you about. So as you can see right here, axle D4, and if you was to pull this ring and pinion out of this 8.8, you would have it. You got your parts from the junkyard, and believe me, that is the worst part of this 300 rear horsepower build. So up next is we're going to talk about the combination or supporting parts. The probably most important thing with those junkyard parts is finding the correct porter. Now I'm gonna send you over to somebody I trust and have used in the past about porting, but what you're gonna need ported is the upper intake. Yeah, I said the upper intake. The lower intake, you know, if it's Sn95, this elbow adapter, throttle body, and of course the heads. This is going to free up, you know, low lift, mid lift, RPM, airflow so much. Trust me on this one. Also, you're going to have to get a couple of things, either secondhand or from you know, one of the catalog stores. Like I said, if you're good on Marketplace, you can find this stuff with a little patience, but you know, things like a camshaft. The camshaft is important to the combination. You don't want the wrong camshaft for this combination we're trying to put together. Things like headers, you know, we're going to go over, you know, finding headers, you know, mufflers, even mufflers, you know, X-pipe, little stuff like that that will free up airflow or give you a restriction in airflow, which can make a big difference in trying to make 300 rear horsepower. So that's pretty much the video, live video part of this stream. What we're going to do after this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about cylinder heads up next, because you might be asking yourself, why should I go to the junkyard and spend, you know, money on getting it ported and pulling the heads when I could just buy some of these cheap China heads? Well, we're going to go over that. By me, I can get a set of GT40 heads for about $110 with no co-return. Hopefully in your area, your cost is similar to that. It plays a big part in the budget. I can get an upper and lower for around 55 bucks. The key for me is having everything bolted together when you check out. If you have two pieces, they're going to charge you for each individual piece. The biggest single expense in this build is going to be port work. Now, I'm not sponsoring this guy. I mean, he's not sponsoring me. I'm not getting paid by this guy. I'm just passing my experience with him and the results along to you guys. For this combo to work, you need to send him the upper, lower, the heads, throttle body, and if you have the elbow, you have to send him the elbow. The guy's name is Big Dogs Porting. He's on Facebook, so if you want to reach out to him, just search Big Dogs Porting. The cool thing is he documents his port work. So if you send him some heads, what he'll do is he'll do a before and after and send that stuff to you. I've had other internet porters do my heads, you know, some guys from back in the day. Never got any data from those guys. So is this Big Dog Porting guy pulling numbers out of the air? You know, is it true? I don't know. Could be. I did have my intake, throttle body, and elbow ported by him. Problem is, I can't give you any real feedback because when I bolted everything up, I went from a on-3 76 turbo to a precision 76-75. So I put all that stuff together at the same time, so I really can't give you any honest review on if this thing made a difference with my combination because it's just too many variables. The only way I can do that is if I have my car dynoed and then I noticed that the RPM range was extended. So with that said, his reviews are solid. His dyno sheet matched claims. One thing I can say about him is dude's slow. Like at the time for me it wasn't a big deal because it was over the winter and he had my stuff. I can say for the price it was worth the wait. $250 to port the upper and lower. If you want the heads ported by him, it's $450. I paid $45 for my throttle body and elbow to be ported. So that's the price. So up next, we're going to talk about cam selection. Let's talk about our cam selection. You have choices to get to that 300 rear horsepower. I'm not going to go over the cam specs and the reason for each cam, but maybe I'll do that in another video. You could use a Trick Flow Stage 1 or a Trick Flow Stage 2 cam. I would prefer the Trick Flow Stage 2. You have a choice of Anderson N412 cam or Anderson N41 cam. You even have a Comp Extreme Energy 270 cam will work. Finally, this is kind of old school, but if you can find a Wolverine 1087 cam, that was a pretty popular cam back in the day that had some good results. So that would work. The cheapest cam out of that group is the Trick Flow Stage 2 cam. It's as low as $279 if you Google it. So there's some items I will not buy used. Cylinder heads being at the top of the list because guys unload bad cylinder heads all the time on market or any secondhand format. Just by looking at them, you can't immediately tell that they're bad. It's one of those things, either you install on the vehicle and it's bad, or you take it to the machine shop and they tell you you got a paperweight. Cam, on the other hand, you can see if the lobes are damaged. It's very easy to tell a bad cam. With that in mind, hit Facebook Marketplace or any secondhand selling format. Just a quick 15-minute search on Facebook Market. I found the guy selling a brand new Trick Flow Stage 2 for $250. So, that marketplace, secondhand, that's really a key thing in this build. So up next, we're going to talk about valve springs. Off the bat, I would just purchase Alex Gt40 springs. They're around the same cost as the Trick Flow spring kit. The difference being that the Trick Flow springs are a dual spring with a lower lift. The Alex, I think this is called the Max Output spring kit, is a beehive style spring with more lift. Now, lift isn't the only difference between these two springs. The beehive spring weighs less because of the retainer than the dual spring. The weight difference might not sound like a big deal, but valve spring stability is very important. We're going to need to spin this motor pretty high to get to that 300 rear horsepower with this combo. So you want a lighter spring that offers better valve stability. The cost of the Alex springs are $199. The cool thing is if you send the springs in with the heads for the port job, you might not have to pay to get the springs installed. Like, don't quote me on that as law, but I'm not sure. So you'll have to do some research on that. Next up, we have the exhaust and some closing thoughts. For this part of the build, I'm going to need y'all to be a marketplace assassin. Reason being, headers are expensive for quality stuff.
quality stuff won't crack. Quality stuff is not warped. You can find a lone tube header on eBay for $200, but how long would that last? And what about fitment? You know, $200 headers are cheap China headers. So with that in mind, we'll stick with the quality stuff. BBK has Shorty Headers, brand new, for $219. If you can't find something on the market for about $100, you got to buy them brand new. But a quick search, I found those for $100. X-Pipe, it's going to cost you around $250 for something new, but we're going to say you can find one for $100 on the market. Lastly is the mufflers. I would go with the Jones full bore muffler. They flow great. They're only $80. The downside is they're not very loud, so some of you guys might be turned off for that. So that's the combo. 300 rear wheel horsepower from Gt40 heads, a Gt40 intake. Let me be clear. It's not a Gt40 intake, I know. It's a Gt40 style intake. I know some of y'all will argue all day about that, but as we're saying, 300 rear horsepower. You know, we got a user right here who claims that combo worked for him to get 300 horsepower from a Junkyard build. The real meat of this combo is in the port work. You know, without it, you're gonna fall short of that 300 rear wheel horsepower goal. Like, I threw some data, some before and data up of some of the port work, and that's that. You know. I hope you enjoyed this one. Leave a comment. You know, if you got a 300 rear horsepower Gt40 setup, let me know what cam you run, your exhaust, you know, if you poured it, if you unpoured it. You know, if you have an E7 head that's 300 rear horsepower, let us know about that. So you can also check out my Instagram at Sn95 Power. Go ahead and give me a like and subscribe. I appreciate y'all, and God bless.